Welcome to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm your host, Nate Zielinski, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Suzanne Andreessen. Suzanne, we're going to wrap up talking about building out your team, and it's a very important topic for investors, one that every one of them should consider. We always talk about finding general contractors. We've talked about asset managers, other industry professionals, but often the most networking and the most partnerships that happen in the investment space is between two investors. So that's where we're going to take this conversation today. And really, we're going to kick it off with the importance of networking.
Networking is huge in this space. We've chatted a couple times on some national events. And probably the biggest one when you talk about connecting investors would be the National Real Estate Investors Association, National REIA. Those are all of like-minded folks. They're going to be in your backyard. I encourage you all to participate in some of these organizations because it helps with so many different things. It helps you in asset selection. You may have someone who has a different buy box than yours, and you can support each other as you find assets that are for their consideration for acquisition. But it allows you to even test, what type of contractors they have. You've got the ability to really communicate and network with each other, and that's huge in this space.
It's a relationship-driven business at the end of the day. That's really what it boils down to. I've been lucky, and we've been lucky to interview some people, and I spent most of last year interviewing guests. And the one common theme is that no one did it by themselves, right? It's not always about who can help me find the next deal and who can help me make money. It's about building a community, right? Finding people that have been through similar situations that can help you, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's a year from now. There's so many people out there that investors can take advantage of and utilize within their partnerships. And other investors are the biggest starting point, right? Because they're doing exactly the same kind of work. They've seen the same situations and been through the same scenarios. So what better person to bounce ideas off of, just vent, maybe it's been a long week or a long month. Finding those other investors to, not only find the deal flows, but to partner with and build a community with is super important, I think, for longevity.
Sure. I mean, I think probably your initial reaction when you get into the space is to silo yourself and protect yourself and make sure that, no one's around able to capture your buy box and beat you out of transactions. And that may happen, but the best thing that you can do is really engage with the knowledge of your peers. And, as you have a, unique foundation problem, who's there that can help you with that?
Yep.
What happens if you find radon in your water? Who else has had that experience? So what are the things that you can do to help mitigate the radiation, to help? And so bouncing ideas off each other, talking about, new products that are in the space. You've got, vinyl shower walls, luxury shower walls made out of vinyl, which is completely different than what it was in the space 10 to 15 years ago, and very cost effective to install. So some of the things that we've seen in the evolution of space is brought to us by simply sharing knowledge with each other.
And you mentioned all those opportunities, all those REIAs they can join, right? Whether it's locally or nationally. A lot of these have social media components to them as well. So you can network, through Instagram, through Facebook, through LinkedIn. There's so many different people you can meet in so many different ways you can communicate with them. It's not always just about who is local to me, who am I seeing on the road at trade shows, right? You can network with an entire group of people that, stretch across the country, and that can be extremely valuable.
Well, and just having, access to off-market deals and wherever they're coming from. Right now, the hardest thing is to source assets. They're few and far between, people having to turn to the MLS, which is a non-traditional way for investors to acquire their assets. But if you can come across an off-market transaction from someone who's essentially done the initial vetting on it, and it didn't suit them, but maybe it suits you, is a great way to do that.
That's one of the ways that you can communicate with other investors, right? Is letting them know, these are my goals. These are the properties that I'm looking for. They might say the same thing to you. So again, it's a back and forth relationship, right? You may find a property and give them the lead on it, and they'll do the same thing to you, right? If it's in your buy box, in your wheelhouse, something that's in your portfolio, that investor may think of you right away, right off the bat, and send it to you. And, you can get the jump on the competition for securing that property in your portfolio.
But even taking that a step further and maybe turning that into a partnership. also, where you can, where you've got two like-minded folks, and maybe those 3 or 4 units that were in a scattered site right close by was more than you could do alone, but
Hmm.
collectively you could do it together.
Yep.
There's another way to get there
Yep.
from partnering.
There's joint ventures, syndications, co-investments. There's so many different ways to go about it. But yes, you hit it right on the head. It's those people that want to take that initiative, like-minded individuals. They've gotten to know you, right? It's not always about sell, 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 and how can this person help make me more money? But it's like I've connected with this person, I've networked with this person, met them a few times on the road. I think this property would be perfect for the both of us, and that's when it becomes a win-win when you start talking about networking.
And probably the biggest thing to make networking effective is to be genuine. They need to. Trust is a huge piece in this relationship,
Yeah.
and if you're not genuine, that'll pretty much show itself fairly soon in the relationship, and then perhaps taint it forever.
Yeah, that authenticity, you're right, is so important. And that goes back to traveling on the road, finding these people at trade shows, networking in person, right? That can never be replaced. Obviously, social media has taken us leaps and bounds and made communicating easier than ever, but it's hard to get a genuine sense of a person or whether they're being their authentic selves on social media. That lends itself to a lot of misinformation, fake it till you make it type of vibe, right? There's a lot of actors out there that are thriving in the social media world, whereas you can be genuine and authentic in person. That's hard to fake, right? Go out to dinner with somebody, grab a drink at one of the networking or the cocktail happy hours that some of these trade shows offer, because that's exactly what they're for, right? Yes, obviously there's a sponsor, there's a company that gets their name that, for that hour, right? You're thinking of that company, but that's when you say, "Oh, I remember seeing you on Facebook," or "I remember we had a phone call a few months ago. It's great to finally meet you. I'm glad you came here." And that's when you start planting those seeds for that networking and that potential partnership down the road.
Well, it'll help validate other recommendations as well. When you've got whether it's a partner and the electrician, the plumber, whomever, these networking and certainly in person is the best way to do that. It helps you to validate the relationship, but always being authentic and truthful.
Yep. And then from there, it's all about following up consistently. Once you've made that connection, you have to check in. You have to be able to want to talk to this person. Again, it's not always going to be about what can you benefit from them. It's going to be about what value can you add to others as well. I remember we had a prior guest, Yvonne Kenny. Give. Exactly right. So it's all about offering value. Don't ever step into a networking situation and just think about how can I benefit from this as an investor. It's how can I help people around me. That attitude is infectious, contagious, whatever adjective you want to use. And then all of a sudden you'll find so many people flooding you and offering to help you because you started helping them first.
Well, and it shows that you're honest
Mm.
and that you're a team player. And I think that trust is a big thing, and one, you have to earn it, but then you have to maintain it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of who do you want standing next to you.
Yep.
And that's really where this will come in and really support what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and that goes back to the following up consistently, right? It's one thing to have a genuine conversation in person, come up with these grand ideas. It's an entirely another thing to go and then execute them, right? Have those follow-up meetings. Okay, where should we be looking at properties? What technology should we, try to train on together to be better investors, right? There's different ways that you can collaborate, make each other better. And then the end goal is hopefully you're both adding properties to your portfolio, making more money, but there's a lot of steps in between that networking and, partnerships can lend themselves to as well.
Well, and you want to be able to offer value. It shouldn't be with them. What's in it for me? You want to be able to show, and have a collaborative approach with each other.
Yeah.
And show, share what you have and be willing to understand and accept what they had to share back as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a way that you can actually network in bunches, I guess is the right way to put it. But, not only are you doing these one-on-one partnerships, but you can attract maybe 5, 10, 15 people at a time. If there's a skill that you have as an investor, maybe schedule a training webinar, give people your business cards, give people ways to access you, and, eventually train them up on something that you've become proficient in. I think that's a great way to start a relationship because people are, one, always going to remember that. Two, they're going to come back and always want to work with you. And then you just have somebody that, you're just building trust from day one. So it allows itself to not only the next opportunity, but countless opportunities down the road if you're starting with that give, give, give mentality.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great way to really instill what this industry is about, what the networking is. I mean, I believe that everyone that's in this space in some way or another is a mentor to someone else. And I think, even the larger investors that have, 10, 15,000 assets take the pride in teaching and helping the newer guys entering the market. To watch them and show them the pothole so they don't have to hit it themselves. I think it's a great way to build value and trust in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, there's so many professionals like that in the industry, right? That have gotten the flat tire from the pothole, and they're there with the traffic cone, making sure that no other investor makes that mistake. So they're there to train them and help them. It's truly powerful when you see it unfold. I'm sure it's happened to both of us personally within the industry. So Suzanne and I could talk about this for a couple hours. We're going to take a quick break, though. We'll be right back with discussing networking, all the things that investors can be taking advantage of when it comes to deal flows and partnerships, all those good things. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing.
See you shortly. REI Inc. is the premier monthly publication for real estate investors. Dive into a wealth of expert insight and strategies from industry leaders and gain valuable regional market insights, ensuring you always have the best information at your fingertips. Visit rei-ink.com to elevate your real estate investment game today.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. Suzanne and I have been discussing every way that investors can benefit from working with each other, networking, partnerships, all sorts of good things. But let's get into the nitty gritty and as it pertains to leveraging partnerships for deal flow, right? Because at the end of the day, more often than not, these partnerships eventually culminate in working together and trying to secure an investment property. So where do you want to start discussing that, Suzanne?
I think co-wholesaling. There's a way to really collaborate on that and buying an asset through another partnership.
Yep. And it's all about efficiency, right? A lot of times people will take a look at this and say, okay, but if I'm working with somebody, that means less money for me. But if you're working with somebody, that means more properties, right? So when you think about it, and maybe the time it takes for you to secure one property, if you're working with 2 or 3 investors, maybe within the same time, you're securing 4 properties. So not only are you double, tripling, you're quadrupling your investment portfolio, the funds that you're getting from these investment properties, the return on investment. So when you really boil it down, right, there's so many ways and it just stacks on top of each other, right? You're like, okay, well, if I work with this, I get all the money. But if I work with other people, I'm making money from so many different investment properties, it can really stack up and the numbers can get staggering pretty quickly if you're willing to co-wholesale, as you mentioned.
Well, and it is a numbers game. Everything that we do in this space is number games, whether it meets your buy box as a number, where you're collaborating with each other. It's a number of assets and relationships that you've been working on. I think it helps to expedite the transactions versus trying to go solo.
Yep. And there's something to be said about working with somebody that complements your skill set, right? That's one of the things that we didn't touch on in the first half of this conversation. But if you're out there and you're looking and you know what you're good at as an investor, finding a partner or partners that complement your skill set, then the world is your oyster, so to speak, right? The investment potential, if you're a whiz at fix and flip and you want to stick to that, but you have somebody that's great at ground up construction, somebody that's done a bunch of 30-year long-term rentals within the space, now you guys are all working together, collaborating, you're each adding to that portfolio pot, and it just grows and grows from there.
And that leads into a very good topic about joint venture and syndications, and how to collaborate with each other on that.
Yep. And I think for syndications, that comes into play when investors are deciding whether or not they want to make that jump into multifamily. Being a part of a syndication is where you can maybe chip in a little bit, not as much as you would need to secure a 30, 40, 50 unit apartment building, maybe even a 100-unit high-rise, something along those lines. But if you join that syndication, you get your feet wet, you kind of learn the terminology, learn from industry professionals that are much more equipped and better, more experienced with those types of properties, right? And then you can nitpick and network within that, right? Say there's a syndication of 6, 7, 8 investors and you find 1 or 2 that you really match with. Now going forward, you have another person that you can go out and partner with within the investment community.
Well, and I think syndication also helps you to hedge against loss.
Yes.
You've got a more collaborative approach, and if a loss happens, it's also mitigated from just the numbers game on how many
Yeah.
people are in there. But it also can help you achieve pretty successful as
No,
well.
and it can be a scary proposition when you're moving away from, 1 to 4 family units for a 6 to 7 unit to now, okay, we're in the double, nearing the triple digits. You're right, those losses get quantified very quickly. So getting your feet wet and getting a sense of, okay, what are the biggest risks? What are the biggest headaches? What are the biggest bonuses from going this different route, right? Is it worth it to veer off? I think having people that you can network with and utilize within the syndication is really kind of that trial run of, is this next step where I want to go with my investment career?
And you also have we talked about learning from other people's expertise in that syndication. Now you've got a collective group that each brings something unique to the table
Yeah.
that everyone can benefit from.
Yeah. And I think lastly, it really lends itself to setting up a referral network. If you have a group of investors that you've partnered with, maybe not all in the same deal, but if you have, 5 or 6 close friends that are in the investment space, if you ever need a referral for anything, now you have 5 or 6 people that you can trust, right? You've worked with them. You guys have gone through the same types of issues together. They've been there for you in your lowest moments, potentially. They've celebrated successes with you. And then on the next deal, you need help with title, insurance, legal advice, a general contractor. Maybe an issue pops up that you've never encountered at one of your investment properties. You have 5 or 6 trusted professionals of, hey, has anybody seen this before? Can anybody steer me in the right direction? Who should I be hiring to help me? That peace of mind when you're going through a moment that you've never gone through before, when you have a security blanket to fall back on, is massive.
Well, and having people that can stand up for you, when you need the trusted partner behind
Yes.
you. I think that, if someone goes, well, what do you know about Nate?
Yeah.
Let me tell you Nate's been great to work with. We've worked on a lot of projects together. He's fantastic. He's timely, and he's very meticulous.
And I didn't have to pay her to say that.
Well, later you will.
But in all seriousness, right, there's so many people that are willing to help you. You just have to kind of take that initiative, take that chance, and remember that it's a two-way street. You have to help them as well, offer that value, and you'll see it tenfold in return.
Well, and don't presume that you've learned everything.
Yeah.
There's always something else to learn.
Yep.
And be open-minded to receive that.
Yeah, and patience is another one, right? It may not go perfect the first time you try to network. You thought you met somebody that could help you, and it ended up being a dud. They dropped off communication, stopped answering their phone or responding to emails, whatever the case may be. Don't get discouraged, right? That person is an outlier in this industry. I promise you that. Most people have that pay it forward attitude, are willing to reach down and pull other people up rather than push them back down. So exercising patience, I think, is an important thing for an investor to remember. Probably happens within their portfolio as well, right? You don't get every property that you put your eyes on. Not every deal goes your way. And it's the same to be said with networking, right? You might have to go through a few bad apples to find the people that end up being your community that can propel you forward in the industry.
And it's a numbers game. Everything that we've talked about is numbers, on whether it's making numbers in your buy box, making numbers in your acquisition strategy, the timeline of which you need to complete the project. It's all about numbers. Yep. And at some point in time, the numbers will average out in your favor.
Yep. And you really do have to realize that you need to stay consistent. Networking is a long game. As you mentioned, one conversation goes well. That doesn't mean that you've now secured a partner for life. You really have to check in, schedule calls, make sure that your trade show schedules line up potentially. Make an effort to meet the people that you network with on the road, over Zoom. There's so many different ways to communicate. So keep watering that grass, so to speak, right? Keep growing those relationships, and you'll see the benefits when you least expect them down the road.
But you still need to pluck the weeds.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to pluck the weeds while you're watering the lawn.
Exactly. So there you have it. In terms of networking with other investors for deal flow, and most importantly, partnership within the industry, Suzanne and I covered all the bases, so you don't have to. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Uncontested Investing. Same time next week. We'll see you there.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook, and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.